Death, taxes, the Blue Jackets losing to the Pittsburgh Penguins at Nationwide. We're talking about that on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, doing a solo one today, some scheduling mishaps, and I'm also still a little bit jet lagged. So Hayden and I are struggling to find the time, but he'll be back tomorrow. Today, just me, as I talk about last night's. Was it a game? That's being uncharitable. It was definitely a game, but a really, really frustrating one. This is Locked On Blue Jackets. I'm here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team, and mine, sometimes, the Columbus Blue Jackets. I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day, every day, even when the team is doing this. You can find Locked On Blue Jackets wherever you get your podcasts, and over on YouTube. If you want to become an everydayer, hit the subscribe button and get it delivered directly into your feeds. Let's talk about last night's game, because it wasn't all bad. In fairness, I got really frustrated last night, and tweeted some things out, and I still stand by what I tweeted last night, which is that this is not a playoff team right now. They don't look like a playoff team, and that's frustrating. And I saw a lot of people saying things like, "Well, did you expect them to be one?" And they were never going to be a playoff team. And if you knew Puck, then you would know that they were never going to be a playoff team this season. And a lot of comments like that. And I think maybe I didn't articulate myself properly, which is no, I didn't necessarily expect them to be a playoff team. I expected them to contend for the playoffs. I expected them to do better than last season. And right now, in 16 games in, they have a worse record than they did last season. The team looks better, but eye test means nothing versus the standings, So Blue Jackets at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, I believe they're definitely at the bottom of their division. I believe they're at the bottom of the conference as well, and that's really frustrating. It's American Thanksgiving in a couple of weeks, maybe next week. I don't quite know when American Thanksgiving is, because I don't celebrate it. But that's basically when playoff spots are set. If you're in the playoffs by American Thanksgiving, chances are you'll be in the playoffs in April. The Blue Jackets, I believe, are currently 7 points out of a playoff spot, which is not good enough, frankly. I'm just going to pull up the standings to see what's going on. The Blue Jackets are, directly at the bottom of the standings. They are only 4 points out of the second wild card spot, but they don't look like a team that's going to muster basically anything. And that's really frustrating because I don't think the team necessarily played really bad last night. They've played better. I thought the Rangers game was better, and I thought they played better in the Red Wings game as well. But oh boy, it a really annoying game. Which I don't know why we expected anything else, frankly, versus the Penguins. The Blue Jackets have always had trouble against the Penguins. The only time they've beat them in the last 4 years is that game at the end of last season that everyone got real mad about winning, and then it turns out it didn't matter anyway because of the draft lottery, blah, blah, blah. But obviously, they couldn't beat the Penguins when it mattered, because if the Blue Jackets beat the Penguins in this game, in regulation as well, the Blue Jackets jump up to tie them in points. They both have 14 points. The Penguins would have 3 more wins than the Blue Jackets, but it would be a little bit more even. They would have jumped up to only 2 points out of a playoff spot instead of 4. Like, it would have been, and they would have broken the stupid 6-game losing streak that they're on right now, which is too many games to lose in a row. They have 1 win in their last 11, I believe. That 1 win against Tampa Bay, which is, sure, why not? Of all of the teams to win against, why not beat Tampa Bay as your only win in the last 11 attempts? They've got some winnable games coming up. Tomorrow we're going to talk about the Coyotes, who I always think, oh yeah, no, it's a winnable game, but they're doing okay at the minute. They are 7-6-2, over 500. They've got a +6 goal differential, and they are 4-4-2 in their last 10 games, which is way better than the Blue Jackets, if you're paying attention, who are 1-6-3 in their last 10 games. So I guess the Coyotes might be good now. It's the West is weird this season. And we'll probably talk a little bit about that in tomorrow's episode. But to kind of sum up this game, I want to talk about some good things. I want to talk about some bad things. And we'll do that kind of in a little bit here. But the Blue Jackets in this game looked like a team that could almost compete. Unfortunately, it's been a long string of games where, like, just it feels like the same thing keeps happening. You know, they fight back, they get a good performance from Elvis again, who I think had a 900 save percentage. Yep, made 36 of 40 saves. And then the 41st one was an empty netter, which, as we all know, doesn't count. He is, again, he was really good against New York. He was good last night against the Penguins. He's still, climbing into. He's still climbing, but he's got a 901 save percentage and a 324 goals against average. And I think has faced like more shots than most goalies. He's currently 9th in the league in shots faced. And he's played fewer games than I think 6 of the 8 guys that are ahead of him. So he's doing the best that he can. He's allowed 32 goals in 11 games. So he's doing much better than last season. So that was kind of a real bright spot for me, was the play of Elvis, who just, I would really love if the Blue Jackets could win a game where he plays well. Because at the minute it feels like he's playing really well and the team is losing. Or he has a bad game and the team manages to find a win. And there's no real way to do both of those, except when they play badly. And Elvis also plays badly and they lose, which it's fine. It's fine. I can talk about this a little bit on the national show on Monday. I did a quick hit with Gil Martin over there on Locked On NHL. And I talked about how I would love to see the Blue Jackets put a 60-minute performance together where the offense is good, the defense is good, and the goaltending is good. And it feels like they get between 1 and 3 of those 4 things. And they haven't yet found a way to put all 4 of them together. So 60 minutes, good offense, good defense, good goaltending. And that's really frustrating to watch. There are other good things that I want to talk about. In particular, a certain defenseman is back. I want to talk about David Jiricek's game last night against the Penguins. That's coming up in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, though, I've got to tell you about Sleeper, because a new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities. Kirill Marchenko could score 50 goals. The Blue Jackets could hoist the Stanley Cup. It doesn't seem likely, but they could. And you could win big by playing Daily Fantasy Hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. They're our number 1 choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether guys like, let's say Sidney Crosby, who had a good game last night, is going to record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in a given game. If you correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats, you're going to win 100 times your money. So if you put $5 down and get 8 things right, you are going to win $500. You heard me right. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That is code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We're talking about the game against Pittsburgh, which just was a typical Blue Jackets game against Pittsburgh, where they give you hope and then they take it away. But there was good things. There was good things in this game. I've talked a little bit about Elvis being a bright spot of that game. I also want to give a shout out to David Jiricek for returning and playing well. He played the least amount of ice time of any defenseman, him and Jake Bean. I actually really liked that pair. Jake Bean has really surprised me this season as a competent defenseman, which sounds mean, but I think because he was injured for so much of last year and he'd kind of got pushed out of that top 4 conversation with, the additions of Severson and Provorov, who were both abysmal last night, I thought. He was very good. Both he and Jiricek, I thought, were very good last night, which is a problem because that's your third pair, and your third pair should probably not be your best pair. I think that Jiricek was something that this team should never have sat, or someone, I guess, not something. He's a person, not an object. And I feel like last night really only proves that he should be in the lineup. And I get it. They had to move some things around. They had to activate Yegor Chinakhov off IR. Putting Jack Rostovich on IR buys them some time. 4 to 6 weeks, he's going to be out. So Jiricek has that pathway. But last night's game really kind of proved to me, and especially after, the couple of games before that, you should not be playing Andrew Peeke over David Jiricek. I'd argue you shouldn't be playing Adam Boquist over David Jiricek. That just, I don't know. That's kind of a good thing and a bad thing. If your third pairing is the best pairing in the game, then that feels like a problem. But a problem with a really easy solution, which is just give them more than 12 minutes of ice time, which I believe is what David Jiricek got 12:49 last night. Jake Bean got 13:21. So Ivan Provorov and Damon Severson, who were both not very good last night, managed to get over 22 minutes each. Werenski played 24:04. Gabranson played 18:15. Like, it feels like there's a real easy solution here. The thing is, it feels like this is the correct configuration. This is like the best 6 defensemen to play right now. I don't know why we keep pushing this Gabranson-Werenski pairing. It hasn't bitten them too badly yet, but I would really like to see the Werenski, Severson, Provorov, Jiricek, Bean, Gabranson duos again, because that felt like the best configuration to me. Jiricek, Werenski would be fine, but I feel like Provorov, Severson has kind of turned into a little bit of a disaster, especially defensively. Offensively, they've been fine. Defensively, again, it was those guys on the ice for the game-winning goal and the empty net goal, and just a real rough outing for that duo. So maybe split those guys up again, go back to what we know works in Provorov and Jiricek and Werenski, Severson. So that's kind of how I feel about that. In other bright spots, the penalty kill continues to be very, very good. The Blue Jackets are 3rd in the league in penalty kill. Only the Stars and the Bruins are better than them. Special teams, for the most part, okay, no, that's unfair to say. I was going to say special teams have been bad, but penalty kill has been spectacular. I believe they've killed off 25 straight power plays from the opposing team. Unfortunately, the penalty, the power play is not good. They, I believe, haven't scored in 27 attempts. And this was going to be a full segment on the good things before I moved on to the bad things. But if we're talking about special teams, let's talk about special teams. Blue Jackets went 0 for 4 last night against Pittsburgh. I'm just going to see if I can pull up how many shots they had. They had 10 shots on the power play and didn't score on any of them. So what do we like? It's so annoying. And it's so frustrating, and it feels a little bit like they're just kind of throwing stuff at the wall right now to see what sticks. And I get that. If it's not working, change it up. But it feels like they're kind of going back to things that we know don't work. So like Gaudreau and Laine were on the same power play unit, which we know doesn't work. They both like to be in that same spot, that kind of left hash mark spot. And what happened was they just kind of floated. They kind of just did this. They kind of it's an audio podcast. I'm doing great here. They just kind of floated around, and one of them would spend some time over there, and then float across the middle of the ice to the right hand side, and they would swap positions like that. They mixed up some personnel. It wasn't working, and I appreciate them changing these up and trying it because I feel like I sat through so many games last season of Brad Larson just rolling out the exact same power play over and over and over again, and then being shocked when it didn't work. So, like, I appreciate them trying new things. The power play didn't look terrible. They had some good movement. They had some good flashes of offensive creativity, let's say. But it's not working. Hopefully we'll see something different again next game. That would be nice. Mix things up. Change things up. And kind of on that subject, I want to talk a little about the line combinations, because that's something else that I want to change up in the forward core. So I'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. Thank you for making us your first listen. If you want to be an everydayer, please hit subscribe on YouTube or on any podcasting app that you use. You can find us there, and also on Sirius XM, the radio app, if you are a radio app person. Let's talk about the forward combinations, because I know a lot of people like the Fantilli line, the Voronkov, Marchenko, Fantilli line. It wasn't good last night. It kind of got caved in defensively. They didn't really create anything offensively beyond that goal, which I get it. They created a goal, but I think things need to change up. The fourth line, again, I thought was their best line of the night, which feels much like when your third defense pairing is your best pairing. If your fourth line is the best line, something has gone really wrong with the other three lines. Texier, Danforth, Corelli, I like a lot. Keep that line together. It's the top 9 that you need to do something with. And I wonder if it's time to try something, I don't know, Gaudreau, Fantilli, Marchenko as a line, and then have the Laine, Jenner, Chinakhov line, which was fine. And then that leaves you with Voronkov, Sillinger, Bemstrom. I get that people don't want to split up the Fantilli line. I get it. They have been good. They have some chemistry. I think keeping Voronkov and Marchenko together is more important. Or I think I would keep Voronkov and Marchenko together over, like, I would move Fantilli out of that spot. Frankly, I might put Cole Sillinger there. I would like to see Fantilli with Gaudreau is really where I'm getting at here. Fantilli has proven to be a really good driver of offense. He does all of the little things. And I think putting Gaudreau in the position to succeed by giving him Fantilli, and then either give him Marchenko, who's got a really good shot, Chinakhov, who scored a great goal last night. Just give him something to work with. I think you should be putting Johnny Gaudreau in a position to succeed. And right now, to me, that feels like putting him on a line with Adam Fantilli and seeing what those two can do. Give them a pure goal scorer, a Marchenko, a Chinakhov, like if you want to put Line on that line, like that might the Fantilli Line chemistry might be enough to overcome the lack of chemistry between Line and Gaudreau, but you've got to change things up because what's going on right now with the forward lines isn't working. Beyond again that fourth line, which I like a lot. That line's mean. I like it. I feel like I say this every episode, but I like that fourth line a lot. I think they have really kind of carved out an identity of what a fourth line should be, which is, it's the fourth line should be that TikTok that talks about energy and passion and footwork and passion and energy. And it's usually a dog doing like little tippy taps or something, but like they bring all of those things consistently every game. They work hard. They were I don't know. I really like that guy. I really like that line last night. I think they bring a lot of, like I said, energy. Justin Danforth skates at 110 miles an hour and no other speed. Texier seems to be figuring it out. I think he's got 5 points in his last handful of games. He's got 3 goals after going, I think the first 10 games he didn't score, and he's got 3 goals in his last 5, I think, which he's figuring it out. Kiraly does what Kiraly does. He's got a little bit of snarl to him. He can win face-offs, usually. I don't know what his face-offs were like last night. 60% in face-offs last night. Led the team. No, that's a lie. He didn't lead the team. Line and Danforth both did better than him, but I suspect that they did like 4 face-offs between them. The point is that fourth line is good. They just figure everything else out, which I guess if you have to like build from the ground up is not the worst. Okay, you have one line, your fourth line, you figure that out, keep that. Now you only have 9 other moving pieces instead of like 12 moving pieces. I'll be interested to see what the line combinations look like against Arizona. Probably we won't get that until tomorrow anyway. Maybe later today. My times have been all screwed up because I'm still jet lagged. It's fine. This is not the end of the world, this loss. I know that it feels like that, and I know that I have kind of been talking about it like that. This is not the end of the world. This team can turn it around. We are seeing good things from them, but it's consistency, it's growing pains, it's chemistry, I think is a big one that we haven't really talked about, in that, okay, most of these guys were here last year, but guys that weren't here last year, Voronkov, Fantilli, Texier, Chinakhov didn't play a ton last year. Like, Line was in and out of the lineup. Cole Sillinger was basically a non-story last season because he played about 4 minutes a game. Brand new head coach, new systems. Pascal Vincent, I still am a believer in Vincent. I know I've seen a couple of people calling for the head coach to be fired after 16 games, where coaching hasn't been the problem, I don't think. It makes sense that this is what the team is right now, but it's frustrating to watch because it feels like they're playing better than their record and not getting anything for it. And that's, good teams find ways to win in games like that, and the Blue Jackets are figuring things out. They have kind of responded differently each time, which is really interesting to see. So, like, I thought they obviously gave away a ton in that third period against New York, and it cost them. I thought they did a better job of kind of not just turtling in the third period. Shots were 17-11 for Pittsburgh in that third period, and I do think the Blue Jackets need to allow fewer shots. They got outshot 41-30 by the Penguins, so like not egregious, but more than I liked. But it was 17-11 in the third period, as opposed to like 21-1, or it wasn't quite that bad for the Rangers, but they basically didn't get a shot on goal in the third period against the Rangers. And so like they weathered the storm a little bit better than they did. Obviously it didn't work out. Sidney Crosby is Sidney Crosby, man. Like, and that's the other thing, is that, yeah, it's a frustrating loss, but also I'm like, yeah, obviously Sidney Crosby had a 4-point game and scored a hat trick. That's what Sidney Crosby does. And I know a lot of people are like, well, he's old, he's getting worse. Like, someone should tell him that, frankly, because he has like 20 points so far this series, this season in like 14 games. So someone should probably tell Sidney Crosby that he's old and slow now and can't score goals. I'm frustrated to allow a hat trick to Sidney Crosby, but I'm also like, yeah, that makes sense. In the same way that like an Alex Ovechkin hat trick makes sense, or McDavid having like a 6-point game against you, like that. Annoying, but it makes sense. Like, it's really difficult to be like, hey, you guys should stop Sidney Crosby, one of the best players in the world, from doing things. Um, and that's kind of, I think, the next step for me is kind of taking that step forward, and challenging these players and saying, okay, no, we're not gonna let Sidney Crosby just kind of walk in and do things. We're not gonna let Alex Ovechkin walk in and do things. Like, that it's a struggle, it's a challenge, but the next step for this team, I think, is hold a lead, which is but easier said than done, I know. But I thought they showed good kind of poise, equalizing at 3, and then obviously that Crosby goal, just a super ridiculous. Both of his goals against Elvis were just so ridiculous, by the way. So again, not holding this against Elvis in any way. He had about as good of a game as I can expect from Elvis. But the next thing for me, I think, is you have to figure out a way to equalize. You have to figure out a way to stay competitive. And it feels like things are moving in the right direction. And that sounds stupid when they're on like a 6-game losing streak. But and again, there's no moral victories at this point, but it feels like they're fixing an area every time. I just wish that if they fixed an area, something else wouldn't break. You know, it feels very much like they in a cartoon when you plug one leak in the side of a ship and then another one starts going, and then you like, okay, well, I'll plug that one as well, and then a third one starts, and you're like, well, I've run out of hands now, so I'll have to plug the third leak with my nose, and eventually they will plug all of the leaks, and it will stop being a Warner Brothers cartoon, but it's making for some rough watching until then. That's kind of all I've got for today. Tomorrow, like I said, Hayden will be back. We'll talk about the Coyotes, who are on a bit of a hot streak. We'll talk about Adam Fantilli versus Logan Cooley as we go with dueling third overall draft picks. Logan Cooley, I believe, has an extra point on Fantilli in the he has 2 more points than Fantilli in the rookie scoring race. He's currently in second place. Adam Fantilli tied for fourth. Be really great to see Fantilli get a couple of points in this one. But we'll talk about that tomorrow with Hayden. He'll be back. And thank you for listening. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. We are free and available on all podcast platforms. We're over on YouTube. We are on Sirius XM. I am on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email us at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. And yeah, thank you once again for listening. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.